meeting the challenge in addressing the stigma of mental illness and suicide. And I'm going to start with looking at Goal 3 for the National Strategy for Suicide Prevention. And that's to develop and implement strategies to reduce stigma associated with being a consumer of mental health, substance abuse, and suicide prevention. And again, why is this important? We know that about 90% of suicidal individuals have some sort of mental illness. We know that mental illness is treatable and suicide is preventable, and especially in lieu of all the effective interventions that are currently available for individuals. Now, stigma prevents many people from seeking help due to their fear of being seen as weak, crazy, illogical, as well as their fear of prejudice and discrimination in seeking services. We know that 2/3 of people with mental disorder do not seek help, and that's a large amount of people. Stigma may deter someone from suicide. However, it also poses a barrier to treatment for those who have thoughts of suicide or who have attempted. Stigma keeps those at risk of suicide from seeking help for treatable problems. Untreated individuals also add emotional burdens to their family and friends. Suicidal individuals, as well as families and friends, hide suicidal behaviors from others, because others may view suicidal behavior as shameful and sinful, not only for themselves as well as for other people. Survivors of suicide grief loss suffer the pain of their loss and are many times isolated from others and their community without support, feeling perplexed, lacking awareness and education about suicide and mental health. Stigma has also resulted in separating health care in basically two systems, mental health and physical care. The confusion is even more emphasized when we look at substance abuse, because we will see differences in dealing with substance abuse in terms of it appears to be more integrated care than other mental health disorders. However, there is still some distinction when we look at financial available resources when it comes to mental health issues. And so we have two systems of care, the mental care and we have the physical care. Consequently, there's less preventative and treatment services for mental illness and suicide than physical care because of the stigma. And there's the lack of integration of health care in treating the whole person. Now, I want us to begin by addressing, I put 4 questions here for us to look at. And I want to begin with this first question. What are the challenges in addressing stigma of mental illness and suicide? Now, I didn't say substance abuse, again, because I pretty much put substance abuse under the umbrella of mental illness because it is considered a psychiatric disorder. Does anyone want to begin with any thoughts about that?
I think one issue, we have an anti-stigma committee, is the population is getting much older. And so it's even harder with the people over 60 or 70 years old to talk to them about stigma issues or talk about mental illness itself. Mm-hmm. So I think that large group of people that we have is one problem we have.
One problem is the older group. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What else do we see as a challenge to this?
I think that the word suicide alone is a challenge. I think that a lot of people don't accept and can't say the word and express themselves that to an individual that they may be suicidal. I don't feel good, I'm okay, I'm just having a bad day or something of such. But they're really out of whack completely. Being an assistant trainer and involving myself with some people that have had problems in meeting them, I hadn't had the opportunity to actually in talking to them and to listening to them, I found out beforehand that they did not have their problems did not deal with it, was not suicidal. So I didn't have to use the word suicide with them because of their situations. But I personally don't have a problem saying to them if they're suicidal. In fact, last night at a meeting, I could see people that deal with it on a daily basis don't want to say the word. They feel, whoa, we're going to put people at risk because we're going to use that word, or we're going to put a suggestion into their mind of the fact that they may be suicidal. So I think that alone is a very difficult situation to handle.
I would
Go
agree
ahead.
with that one. That's very big as far, because we got a problem with
Okay.
cutting the suicide prevention program and making up other programs like Buddy to Buddy and Resiliency that doesn't really talk about that particular word. So we tend to cut out that whole issue altogether because of that, kind of like the touchy-feely. We don't want families in the pre-deployments, post-deployments to even talk about suicide because we're afraid that we may down their emotional feelings of the joy of coming back or the scarcity of even being deployed. And so I think there's a big degradation in the word, but also the expectations that we have in ourselves runs in society. And that's why you have numbers in certain populations, like the military and police, that may not report or not talk about those issues because of what they're supposed to be qualified.
The connotation behind the word, that whole issue of the shame, sense of weakness and stuff.
Yeah, did you see the